Hello and welcome to the Buddha and the Coach, my friends. This vlog is powered by Soul Performance Academy. I am your host, Dan Mickle. The Buddha and the Coach is a weekly vlog focused on looking at the teachings of the Buddha in a coach's light. The Buddha and the Coach is proud to be sponsored by ICN Athletics. It's called Normal Athletics Makes the Extraordinary Ordinary through adaptive beach volleyball. Everyone should have the opportunity to enjoy and excel at this sport, and ICN offers the programs and education to make it normal for adaptive athletes to play on any court. Help them make beach volleyball court a place for everybody. For more information or to make a donation to the 501c3, please visit icnathletics.com. Thank you, and they'll see you in the sand. And again, thanks to John and Dave and everyone involved at It's Called Normal Athletics, icnathletics.com, doing some great stuff out there. All right, we are at lesson 10 this week from the Buddha. And this lesson, the Buddha says, if you knew what I know about the power of giving, you would not let a single meal pass without sharing it in some way. Man, is this a great topic. And we have some few ways that we're going to look at this. I want to break it down in two ways. First, I want to break it down as a coach to coach. And I also want to break it down as coach to player. Actually, let's reverse that. Let's do coach player first, because obviously, as a coach, we want to pass on our knowledge to our players. Seems pretty simple, right? But how many times do we actually give them the bare minimum? We give them just what we want them to do, but maybe not give them the full background or the whole scope of why we want them to do something or how it's going to work. And I think that is kind of what we run into, and a problem that we run into is we're not giving enough background information to our players. We're not really giving them the why. We're just telling them what to do, telling them to do it, and then not really going in depth as why we want them to do it, which in the long run could help because it'll help them figure out in different situations that may be a little bit different than what they're doing right now, but then they'll recall it and say, hey, I could use this technique, or maybe I should do this in this situation because it worked before. And now that I know the background, the why, I can figure it out. And I do think that is one of the problems that we run into as coaches. We are in such a rush to get things done, get things right, to win those games, that we don't often do a deep enough dive into the theory and the reasons behind we're making those decisions. Now, again, as a coach, I'm not saying that every decision has to be explained fully to your players. I'm not saying that you have to run everything by them. I'm just saying that there are a lot of times that we could probably help our program, ourselves, and our players out by giving them a little bit more background in what we're asking for. So that is my challenge for you coaches this week. Look at how much background information you are giving on the decisions that you're making, and how can you inform your players a little bit more, maybe to make things a little bit better, a little bit more solid, and absolutely more lasting from your players. All right, so that is looking at this lesson of the Buddha. Again, lesson 10, if you knew what I knew about the power of giving, you would not let a single meal pass without sharing it in some way. Now let's flip it and kind of look at coach to coach. And this is where I think we're really bad at, in a sense, because we feel like maybe we're cooking some secret sauce or we got something going on and we don't want to share it. And that actually hurts our profession. All these secrets and methods. And, you know, I had a mentor a while ago, Tom Tate from Penn State volleyball, men's and women's, a legend in the volleyball world, you know, tell a story about how he was on the road and he stopped by to see a friend coaching, and he went to get in the gym and the gym was locked. No one could get in. And he just left. And the coach was like, well, why didn't you just knock or give us a call and we would have let you in? And his response basically was, well, if your doors are locked, I don't want or need to see anything that's going on. Why wouldn't you want to have it open? And I think that's one of the problems. And I think this is also kind of a problem where we run into with the parents, that maybe we're just a little bit too guarded in what we do, either between coaches or between outside people like parents, other stakeholders, athletic directors. We should be open. There's no reason that our practices need to be closed. Now, again, I'm not saying you want to let your competition into every practice, but what I am saying is if you have a technique that works or something that you works and you know it's a problem across your sport or maybe just across your league locally, why wouldn't you want to share that? We are seeing a huge rise in the mental health issues with our players in a lot of youth sports, right? A lot more anxiety, and coaches don't know how to deal with that. And if you figured out a way or it's not affecting you as much, why wouldn't you share that with other coaches and try and help them? There's a local group that's starting to do coaches roundtable in the area, and what a great idea that is. Right now it's a lot of volleyball coaches because that's who's organizing it and that's the circle, but it's expanding, and I hope to see it be a ton of different coaches and different levels. But it's great to sit down there and talk about all the issues that coaches have with their programs and how they can better things for their players and, how things work in college and what you could do maybe at the high school level or what's happening at the high school level that maybe the college coaches don't see. And I think for some reason we got away from that. But if you look at some of the best coaches across all sports, look at the tree from Nick Saban. People come and go from his coaching staff all the time, and he knows full well that most of those people that come in and are assistants are going to leave and become his competition, are going to become head coaches that he's going to have to play against. But that doesn't stop him from bringing in the best, training them the best way he can, and then releasing them back out. Because he knows it's about the whole package, and he hopes that his skill set will still be better than what they bring. But I think if you start to really look at the best coaches in the world, you'll see that common thread, that they bring in people that challenge them. They bring in people they know that are probably not going to be there forever. They're not lifers on the staff. They're going to end up leaving and becoming their competition, but yet they still do it because they know it makes their program and it makes them better as a coach. And I think that is one of the biggest things that we have to look at. How can we help empower coaches in general? How can I, as a volleyball coach, help my baseball coach or help my track coach? There may be some, there may be a little, who knows? But my goal is to make everyone at our college better. So if I find something that works, of course I want to pass it on. And I'm the same way with some of our competition. I have a great relationship with most of the coaches in our conference. And I'm not afraid to tell them, hey, this is what we're working on, or hey, this is what we're struggling with, because I know that will help them. And if it makes them better, it's going to push us to be better. And it's going to make the whole conference better. Again, I'm not saying, hey, here's my game plan, figure it out. What I'm talking about is here are some of the things that work. Try it, work on these things, or what methods are you using, or how are you dealing with the struggles that players are having? We need to stop having that closed communication, that secretive, notion that we have, because it's going to make us better as people. It's going to make our teams better. It's going to make our players better. It makes our conference better. It makes our sport better. It makes everything better. So as a coach, look at, one, how you're sharing information with your players, and are you giving them enough background to help them understand the why and not just, hey, go out there and do it. Two, what is your relationship with your competition? What do you tell the other coaches, and how do you collaborate with them to make you better? And three is, what communication, what do you do to fill in the parents? And this is the last part we'll talk about, because this is a big problem that everyone seems to have. And I stand by my feeling that a strong parent base makes a strong program. It's a great support base for the players. It can be a great support base for you, and it can be a great support base for your team or your program. But how do we cultivate that? Dr. McCabe, in a recent podcast, and if you haven't seen him, check out Brett McCabe, Dr. Brett McCabe, BHRET for Brett McCabe. He has a great podcast and some great videos. But one of the things he talks about as parents view us as coaches as the barrier to their kids' success. And I'm obviously not going to put words in his mouth, but the way I take that is parents think that we, the coaches, may be in the way. We might be what's stopping our players from success because of how we coach or what we plan to do. And I think a lot of that is because we don't have that communication. Now, obviously, in the recruiting process for the college level, we talk a lot with the players and we give them, kind of the breakdown. This is our coaching style. This is what we're looking for. But how much of us do it with the parents? And I think a lot of us that seem to have lasting programs that are mentally and physically good for our players tend to have a little bit more communication and open with the parents. I think that's where we're falling short in the youth world, especially in the club sports world, because in the high school or middle school world, we do have a little bit more of a hierarchy, athletic directors, principals, that kind of help hold things in check and force those dialogues when they happen. In the club sport world, there is a lot of, well, if you don't like it, go somewhere else. This is how it is. And I think we need to stop that and flip it and just be more open with our parents. Again, I'm not saying run by every game plan or match plan or what you're going to do, but maybe explain to them, this is why we're running this offense, or this is why we put this defense in, or this is why we're using this personnel. And also, this is the role that I see your son or daughter in, and this is how we want to use them. I just think too many times we select these players and then we just go and hope that there aren't issues. And as a parent, it can be tough not knowing what's going on. It's not always parents are upset because of what they see. It's because they're trying to fill in the blanks because they don't know why decisions are being made. Again, we don't need every decision run by a parent, but I think we're just a little bit too tight and we're not showing and sharing what we know with all those stakeholders, because parents are one of the biggest stakeholders in youth sports. They pay the bills, they provide the rides, they basically say the yes or no. And while a lot of players have autonomy over their decisions, we know that parents are behind the scenes helping guide those decisions, which is not a bad thing. But if we're not giving that information to the parents and they're helping guide those discussions, decisions, how much benefit is the player getting from those discussions if the parent is coming from a point of view and they don't know all the facts? So I'm challenging everyone at every level, every sport, even in the educational aspect with teachers. Let's stop going right away to being disgruntled about what's going on and what instruction is or isn't being given. Let's focus more on how to open up those dialogues and have those conversations. How do we talk with those parents? How do parents talk with those coaches? How can we involve everyone? And again, not encroaching on the decision making, but just being more open about it and discussing your philosophies. If your parent meetings at the beginning of the year consist of, this is how you pay us, these are the events that we're going to, and these are the expectations, and that's where it ends, you need to rethink that. Your parent meetings also need to be, this is my coaching philosophy, this is what I expect of my players, and then individually, this is my goal for your daughter or your son. This is the role that I see them. This role may change, it depends on how hard they work or what we run up against, but this is what I'm going in and looking at, and this is what I'm hoping for. I think if we do those conversations up front, you're going to have a lot less friction in that relationship between all the stakeholders. All right. So again, I know this is a lot. It seemed pretty simple, right? Yeah, I'm a coach. Of course I share my knowledge, but I want us to look at how we're sharing that knowledge and who we're sharing it with. It's easy to look at it from the coach to the student or the athlete view. I want us to start thinking about how we share our knowledge with our competition, our fellow coaches, even in the same program. Sometimes you have coaches at different age levels that don't help other coaches because they want to seem, I don't know, they just kind of maybe want to be higher, or they want to seem like they're a better authority. I don't know what the reason is for that. But we see it a lot of times where there's not a lot of collaboration even within the same club or organization. And then also look at how we share our knowledge with our parents. We need to do more than, hey, this is our schedule, this is what we expect, this is when you need to pick your kids up, this is what we need for food. Let's not be afraid to reach out and have those dialogues and say, hey, this is what I'm looking for and this is what I'm hoping. Now, again, depending on the level, that all changes. You might have a lot of communications at U8 and U9 and U10, and then maybe it kind of disintegrates as they get older. And then in college, you're pretty much dealing with the player. I get that hierarchy, but I think from, U6 the whole way up to U18 should be pretty open dialogue. And we need to move away from that. Well, I want the player to have that conversation with me. That's great, but we also have to realize that most of these kids haven't had a chance to learn even how to have those discussions with an adult. They have a hard time having discussions with adults they trust, let alone a coach that they may not know that well. So while we can kind of herd them that way, we still need to be open and let the parents and the other stakeholders be involved. And for that to be productive, we have to share what we're doing. All right, so that sums it up. Lesson 10, Buddha and the Coach. If you knew what I knew about the power of giving, you would not let a single meal pass without sharing it in some way. I'm Dan Mickle. Remember, visit my website at danmickle.com, and you can check out our sponsor, Soul Performance Academy, at soulperformanceacademy.com. And also, a huge shout out and thanks for the sponsorship from It's Called Normal Athletics, icnathletics.com. Can't wait to talk to you all next week for lesson 11 of Buddha and the Coach. Peace, love, don't suck, and we'll see you next week.